at his level make or have made me feel that way.
And the other thing is that I found some people will give you the soundbite that you need, but to me, sometimes it's so obvious and now it seems weird, but Kim is so good at what she does because I've never seen an interview with her where I'm like, oh, that you can hear the soundbite, but it's so natural. But it's interesting to hear you say that she gives incredible. It to you like, this is what you need. I'm going to give it to you.
Like this.
Girl,
like,
you're just doing your job and I get it. Yeah, I know.
And now help me do my job.
I love
and
that.
Thank you so much and made you feel like warm and present. But, you know, it happens and then it's over. And you're just like, wow, that was so easy. Why can't they all be like Kim?
Right. I think the whole world should be like the Kardashians, but that's a whole nother conversation for another.
But not dating Bad Bunny.
Not dating Bad Bunny, no. Not dating Bad Bunny.
Not our Bad Bunny.
Have you ever interviewed someone where like just the opposite, where you're just like, and they're not a Hugh Jackman, they're not a Kim, they're not the most pleasant person.
Yes. And I have this like correlation metric about who's going to be like that. So I worked at the Today Show for almost 7 years. And, you know, I would just hang out in the green room waiting for my segment. And I'd go down there. Sometimes I was dressing models for a segment, so I'd had to be there 2 hours before we went live for a rehearsal or just to get them all ready. And so I would see everybody coming in for those earlier hours, which tend to book the bigger celebrities. And so I'd be there, you know, from 7 until 10. And oftentimes I would see huge stars come in with like one person. Sometimes they'd come in by themselves. And I was like, wow, that's really impressive. Then you would see people come in that you're like, where do I know them from? And they would have an entourage that would take up the entire U-shaped couch in the Today Show green room. And I'd be like, but why do they need so many people? And I would kind of keep that list in my head after I found out who they were. And then if I ever had to interview that person, I'd be like, oh, no, because I knew exactly the kind of person they were going to be based on the size of the entourage. I'm not saying the correlation is always right, but a lot of times it is.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like the more...
I mean, that makes sense.
I mean, how many people... Okay, first of all, you're not going to like the Cherry Hill Mall, you know, in New Jersey to shop at like Nordstrom.
I would never be that person. I could really say that. Like to me, it's like I really treat everything like business. I would just be like, why does anyone need to come? You know, right. Maybe you're one person.
Here's the thing. Most of them would come hair and makeup ready. So I'm not even counting for like hair, makeup, glam, all that stuff, right? Like sometimes they'd come ready. Like literally they'd walk in 10 minutes before they were ready to go. So it's not like you're bringing, you know, hair, makeup, and wardrobe. So even if you were, so say you brought hair, makeup, wardrobe, publicist, manager. Okay, that's 5.
Right.
Plus you, that's 6. That's still a lot, right? I mean, I'm talking like Bill Murray would show up with one person. Like if Bill Murray can show up with one person, like does a housewife need 16 people?
The housewives are the worst. I mean, I'll be the one to say it. I don't think
they're all like that. I'm just saying
Not
I've
all.
seen a few of them, or I've seen, you know, people that have had more like kind of, you know, TV movie style careers that have a lot of people with them. And I never understood why they have so many people with them.
So who's your worst interview ever?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Okay, so I can't tell you who it is, but I can tell you what happened.
Okay.
And maybe just based on the context.
Okay.
So there was a big, huge movie coming out. Massive cast, A-list. All A-list cast.
I'm so bad with movies,
Good.
but go
Okay,
on.
great.
Yeah,
Then
no,
you won't get it.
I'm not going to get this. I think like Ocean's 11. I don't know. You know.
And this particular celebrity had done an interview that had aired prior to the junket. And there was a moment that happened in that interview that kind of got like picked up by everyone, right? Not viral, but like went everywhere. You heard it clipped. You know, you would hear it. So very much in like pop culture, everyone's talking about it. And so, you know, again, for people that are listening that don't know how a junket works, usually you're told, don't ask this, don't talk about this, this is off limits. You follow that list. You're respectful of those questions because you want to keep your job and you want to keep the relationship with the publicist and ultimately the celebrity. So you follow the rules. There was no list given to me before I went into the interview. And so I went into the interview. This person was super complimentary, very sweet. And then I brought up that moment because, again, it had been brought up on every show in the country that you would think of. It happened on a network show. It wasn't like some obscure little thing, right? It was a huge show. And I brought it up. And there was a deflect to the question, and I could tell that the energy shifted in the room. Fine. But I kept going. I'm a pro. Keep asking the questions. Celebrity kind of came back. I felt like I won them over again. We finished the interview. I thought it was fine, right? I knew there was an odd moment, but we all recovered, and that's what I do.
Sure.
I'm an interviewer. This is what I do for my job. So I leave, go back to the office. I'm at 30 Rock, and my bureau chief calls me into the office to say we have a problem. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, there's no way it could be that one little moment, right? It's the only thing that had gone not even wrong, that just felt odd.
Yeah.
And it's that moment. And apparently this celebrity was so angry, and the publicist was so upset by this question that had been asked a million times prior to me asking it, that night on the red carpet for this massive global premiere, we were to put our cameras down when this celebrity walked the carpet. That's how angry they were at our show for me asking that one question. And so as soon as that celebrity hit the carpet, the publicist stepped out, found me, I was position number 2 that night, scanned me, looked at me dead in the eyes, and went like this.
Yeah.
It was brutal. It was brutal. And this was a large premiere with many, many celebrities. So it was awkward that we had to go cameras down. But apparently this is not news, and there's another outlet that also has to put cameras down for this celebrity.
Wow.
So
yeah, no, listen, I've been there where same thing, you know what maybe is a little tense, but you work up to it, you ask it, you feel the energy, you like read the room. Because I've also done the opposite where I'm like, oh God, and then I'm like, wow, this person's going to play here today. Great. But I've been there and I'm like, okay, I read the room and I'm switching,
Yeah.
And then everything's fine. And then it's like, why didn't we just address this when you were here?
Totally.
Like you could have said like, by the way, you could say, listen, I really don't want to discuss that today. There's such a profession. I don't know why nobody ever, it's like if you say that, please do. It never,
Totally.
It's always
And
after the fact. I mean, I've burned bridges. I mean, I don't
of course
want to, it's
Right.
not my goal,
Yeah.
but I've burned where it's been like, I am not taking out a 25-minute segment. Why didn't this person stop? And by the way, why weren't you? Where were you? It was a Zoom. Why weren't you listening? Where were you?
Well, there's an entire, and at a junket, just again, setting the scenes for everyone, you're not having a private conversation in a room with just the two of you. There's like 6 camera people. The publicist is in the room. Their people are in the room. And if not, they're watching from an adjacent room. And trust me, they communicate very quickly if you overstep boundaries or you say something that you shouldn't. They're like, okay, we're not going to talk about that. And if the celebrity doesn't say it, somebody will say it for them.
Yeah.
There was no mention of this. And it's so funny because it was such a silly thing. And it was actually like funny. Like it made them really personable and funny. And so I was like, why are they reacting like this? But to me, what was so upsetting to me, first, like as a woman and as a reporter, as a professional, is that to do that in my world, on the press line that I stand in with my coworkers, right, and with my peers, made me look like a chump. And you had to publicly, like, crucify me like that? Like, who would ever treat another woman? Who would ever treat another person like that? And that's the piece that I didn't like. Like, I'm standing here in a press line with my peers, with my coworkers, and you're going to publicly shame me about that? That's the piece I didn't like. I get it. If you don't want to do the interview, you could say, you know what? They're going to pass. Right? But instead of saying they're going to pass, they had to physically see us put down a camera. That piece is like, that's nasty.
You're going to have to tell me who this is off air. No, honestly, off the record, like really, the one thing off the record, I mean, the things I hear off the record really is off the record.
When I tell you who it is.
I'm so intrigued. No, I honestly, like I never repeat. I mean, I hear